Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoiler-free review of Whichwood by Tahereh Mafi. This book was one of my Patreon VIP picks, so every month or so, depending on when I get to the book and how everything lines up, my Patreon supporters all get put into a raffle, and then one of them gets chosen randomly to pick any book off my TBR for me to read. So this is in addition to my TBR book polls that I have every month for my Patreon supporters, but one person may be given the power to choose any book, and I have to read it. So if you are interested in potentially picking a book for me to read off of my TBR and having that ultimate power, I will link my Patreon on the screen. So Whichwood is the second book in the Furthermore series, although I do feel like they are companion books because you don't have to have read Furthermore to have read this book. And this follows Laylee, and in her fantasy world, she is a mortishore, which is someone who washes bodies to prepare them for the dead, but it's in like a magical way. So she has to wash bodies using some of her magical abilities to release their souls from their bodies and them to be able to move on peacefully. And because she's draining her power, because she's the only one who can do this in this world, she is actually dying. So the main characters from the first book do appear in this book to try to help her because they are on kind of a quest, but this book follows her as the main character and them more as secondary characters, and you don't have to have read the first book because this book explains the necessary points about the characters that you would need, because I have read Furthermore but I've forgotten about it because I didn't really like it that much. So this book does a good job reminding you of that. And this is a middle grade story if I didn't mention that, although the characters are getting slightly older in the middle grade category. I think they're like 11 to 14, I want to say. So this is a little bit of like upper middle grade. So first off, when we talk about the world building, this is a different magical world than the one we got in Furthermore, but I like it a lot more. I think because it just speaks to me more personally. There's this bigger connection with like death and death magic. It's more of a snowy setting, and it just feels like something that I like more. There's a lot of imagery that I like more, and in this book I felt like Tahereh's writing worked in a more even fairy tale type way than the first book did. I just liked the floweriness and the funness, and this reminded me a lot of the Fairyland series by Catherine M. Valente. It's that kind of whimsical, unexplained, middle grade fairy tale story feeling with this world and the aesthetics of this world. Next, let me talk about our characters. So like I mentioned, I do not really care for Furthermore, and I've forgotten a lot about it. I think mostly because I didn't really bond with the characters that much in that book. I found them a little bit more irritating. I love Laylee. I relate to her so much, and her like passion and her struggle and her sort of like the reasons that she's closed off to people make sense. Like she was the character that I felt made more sense, where Alice from the first book, who was also in this, but who is the primary character in the first book, she grated on my nerves a bit more because I found her to be a little bit too like precocious, I guess, which is very typical for your middle grade fantasy story, and so a lot of people are going to like that. I just personally didn't really like her that much. I feel like I prefer Laylee, who kind of sits back and observes a bit more, than Alice, who kind of jumps right in and makes a mess of things a lot of times. But I did like those two characters from the first book a lot more in here and their dynamic with her. And then they also make another friend that's from her world too. So there's like this group of four, and I do really enjoy them and their dynamic, and if they do move forward in this series, I might think about continuing it. There's also a start of a hint of like middle grade style romance in here, which was cute. I do have a problem if like children are overly romanticized in their relationships. I'm thinking of Stranger Things season 2 specifically, but this didn't have that. It was like a cute, like, oh, like the little crushes and all of that kind of stuff, which I thought was a good cute element for this. Lastly, we talk about the plot. I read this in 2 days. I found it very easy to get through, where I felt like Furthermore took a lot longer for me to get through. I got more bogged down in it, and like I said with the writing and the flowery writing, this felt just more bingeable in a way, and I cared a lot more about the plot and what was happening. I cared about the magic, I cared about the stakes that were being set, and I really liked that, and it propelled me through the story. So overall, I was very pleasantly surprised by this, because, as I've mentioned numerous times, of not really liking the first book, but really liking Shatter Me overall, with its many flaws, but still really liking it. But this just appealed to me so much more in the setting and the plot and the pacing and the characters and everything. So I ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars and would contemplate reading on if future books in the series also have these kinds of tropes and settings that I like moving forward, because I feel like they're going to be going into different worlds all the time within this series, companion series. So that is it for my thoughts on Whichwood. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.